我90年的，单身未婚。
I was born in 1990, single and unmarried, the so-called leftover women in your eyes. I'm very aware of my situation. I know I'm getting older and could end up being a late mother, so I lowered my standards for a partner drastically. No car, no house, no bride price. I was even willing to pay the bride price myself, and yet, even offering that, no one showed any interest. It makes me wonder, will I ever get married? Will I ever be able to settle down? Where is my place in the end?
40岁，大龄单身。
I'm 40, single, and this will be my last time struggling for love. From now on, no matter who it is, as long as they have good character and we can build a life together, I'm willing to give it a try. I'm no longer chasing romance. I just want the stability and warmth of everyday life. These two women, both born in the 1990s, have lowered their standards, giving up demand for a car, a house, or bride price, even willing to pay the bride price themselves, yet they still attract little interest. In the comment section, netizens pointed out, she's compromising, but has she ever thought about whether the men are willing to compromise? Others' comment were more harsh, saying better to wait until menopause. That saves money and you don't have to worry about children. Behind these harsh comments lies a brutal reality of China's marriage market. When older single women eventually lower their expectations, the average men they once overlooked are already married, while the high-quality men they hope for remain focused on younger women. In the workplace, 35 is often seen as a cutoff for career optimization. In the dating market, 35 becomes a cliff for women. Xiao Ya, working in Shenzhen, shared her personal experience of this terrifying threshold, showing just how stark the age 35 divide can be.
我是34岁未婚未育大龄剩女。
Once you pass 35, it becomes really tough. Just like me, I was born in 1992, so I'm about to turn 36, and I'm still single and unmarried. At this stage, you realize that getting married is extremely difficult. First, you have to meet someone suitable. Second, that person has to actually want to get married. And most importantly, they have to be willing to take the plunge. So both men and women need to understand one reality. If you're over 35 and still unmarried, chances are it will be very difficult to get married for the rest of your life. Shenzhen, a city once synonymous with the opportunity and wealth, has long drawn countless young people chasing their dreams. Some call it a city built for making money, but today more and more people are realizing that Shenzhen has quietly become a city of leftover women.
深圳的剩女数量已经突破80万。
In Shenzhen, the number of leftover women has surpassed 1 million, with around 500,000 of them being high-quality, over 35 single women. They tend to share some common traits. Most come from out of town, earn enough to support themselves, but still struggle with buying a home. Have met plenty of eligible men, but haven't found a match. The reality, however, is tough. The successful men they're interested in rarely consider women over 35, and even for men from wealthy families, parental approval can be a major barrier. It raises the question, are these women really destined to grow old alone? There are 1 million single women over 35 in Shenzhen. To put that in perspective, the city's total resident population is about 18 million, of which around 8.07 million are women, leaving men outnumbering women by 1.83 million. Of those 8.07 million women, those of marriageable age, roughly 25 to 45, number at most 3 to 4 million, and out of them, a staggering 1 million are older single women. That means 1 in every 3 women of marriageable age in Shenzhen is single. At some high-end matchmaking events, the imbalance is even more extreme. Reports speak of 9 women competing for 1 man. So where have the extra 1.83 million men gone? The truth is harsh. These men and the so-called leftover women simply live in different worlds. Most of Shenzhen's surplus men work on the city's assembly lines as delivery drivers, couriers, or in low-level office jobs earning only a few thousand yuan a month. In the marriage market, where family background and social status are highly valued, these men can't even get a foot in the door. By contrast, The older single women tend to be highly educated, independent, and earning upwards of 10,000 yuan a month. They are professional elites working in offices and calling the shots, naturally setting their sights on the tiny fraction of men in Shenzhen who earn millions, owns a car and a home. Here's what a matchmaker had to say.
深圳为什么会成为剩女之都呢？
Why has Shenzhen become the city of leftover women? Because most women attending matchmaking events, about 90% of them are over 30. Take, for example, a 39-year-old woman who is a partner at a brand consulting firm and holds a master's degree. She owns a car and a home with an annual income of around 400,000 yuan. When she was younger, she graduated from a top university, had a good job and a solid income, so her standards for men were high. She hoped her partner would have a 985 level master's degree, own a car and a home in Shenzhen, and earn around 800,000 yuan per year. After 2 or 3 years of dating, she realized that most men meeting these criteria were already married. The few remaining high-quality men in the dating pool didn't really care about a woman's job, income, or education. They were seeking younger, attractive women who could provide emotional value. Later, she persuaded herself to lower her standards and even considered men who only owned property in their hometowns. Yet, suitable men were still scarce. She now deeply regrets missing her prime years for love and marriage. No matter how successful she is today, the options left are what others have passed over. Women's approach to choosing a partner often follows an upward compatible logic. They aim to match or exceed a man's status. But for top-tier men earning around 800,000 yuan a year, a woman's income, car, or property doesn't really matter because, in the end, she's still expected to rely on his money. What they value most is youth, beauty, and emotional appeal. This severe mismatch in partner expectations has caused many of these high-quality leftover women to miss their prime dating years. Yet even today, many women enter the matchmaking scene without facing reality, bringing shockingly high and unrealistic demands.
来，外地的女生啊，
A young woman from out of town came to us looking for a partner. She is 25 and wants to marry a local Shenzhen man, or a so-called second-generation Shenzhen guy, as soon as possible. She pulled out her phone and read her requirements out loud. Number 1, the man must be a true local and an only child. Number 2, he must own at least 2 homes, one in her name and another for her parents to live in during retirement. Number 3, the bride price should be 188,000 yuan entirely for her parents with no dowry on her part. Number 4, he must hand over his salary card, help pay off her brother's mortgage, and after her brother graduates from college, provide 200,000 yuan in startup funds for him. She confidently added, I'm young, I've never been in a relationship, I'm still a blank slate, my body is healthy, so in the future I can have several children. These 4 demands left the matchmaker completely exasperated. This is a classic example of a support my brother mindset combined with a vampire-style approach to matchmaking, treating marriage entirely as a transaction to elevate family status and wealth. But in the face of harsh reality, no one is naive. Such attempts to get something for nothing ultimately leave the women trapped as a leftover single. Once the woman puts a price tag on marriage, it's only natural that the man will start making his own demand in return.
深圳相亲现场竟然变成了燕子。
A matchmaking event in Shenzhen turned into a full-on financial and physical inspection. The woman demanded proof of the man's assets while the man in turn scrutinized the woman. The woman's requirements were high: a house, a car, an annual income above 200,000 yuan, and a bride price of 188,000 yuan. No compromises. The man didn't back down either, laying down his own conditions. The woman had to undergo a medical check, be in perfect health, and have full reproductive capability. The clash of demands ended in a bitter stalemate, and the argument nearly turned physical. Why has Shenzhen, a vibrant city full of young energy, become a hotspot for older single women? Behind this lies the city's intensely competitive, high-pressure economic environment.
深圳再这么熬，大家还能扛多？
How much longer can the people of Shenzhen hold on? The streets appear to be bustling, but in reality, everyone is barely keeping it together. The average salary is just over 6,000 yuan, yet mortgage payments often exceed 10,000 per month. Companies are cutting jobs and salaries, small businesses are barely surviving, and retail stores can't even cover rent. Office workers are juggling credit cards just to stay afloat. People say Shenzhen residents are wealthy, but in reality, the average debt per person exceeds 300,000 yuan. Everyone looks polished on the outside, but underneath, they're just holding on. No one dares to shop, get sick, or collapse. This is the true Shenzhen. The pressures of survival are draining every drop of romance from young people. Men struggling under the shadow of working 12-hour schedules and layoffs can barely cover their own basic needs. How could they possibly meet the expectations of older women who demand a house, a car, and maximum emotional value? Don't assume that leftover women are just a Shenzhen phenomenon. Across the country, the anxiety of older single women is sweeping through every first and second tier city in China. In Shanghai, the so-called magic city, the situation is just as severe.
上海之后肯定是最多大龄剩女的城市。
After Shenzhen, Shanghai tops the list of being the city with the most older single women and also the highest concentration of singles. The dating scene here is fiercely competitive with women who aren't just beautiful but also highly educated and financially independent. From their 20s to mid-30s, they are everywhere and all single. The problem? There are simply too few men who can match them. The high-quality men either spend too much time partying or they refuse to get married. In a city like Shanghai, finding a serious long-term relationship is incredibly difficult.
姐妹们，我是91年的，34岁。
Ladies, I was born in 1991. I'm 34 and I'm still single. Over the new year, I was chatting with some of my high school classmates. They said, "Look at you, working in a foreign country in Shanghai. Such a nice job, good income. You're doing the best among us." I laughed and said, "Really? You know, I rent a tiny shared apartment in Shanghai, just a bed, no living room. The kitchen is the size of a palm, one bathroom. I basically survive on takeout. For all my meals, commuting to and from work on the subway can take 3 hours. I often get home around 8 p.m. and I come back to an empty apartment with no one to talk to. Shanghai may be dazzling, but I never felt like I belong. Are you really sure I'm doing so well?"
我93年的，研究生学历，北漂了9年半，还没有结婚。
I was born in 1993 and have a master's degree. I've been living and working in Beijing for 9.5 years, and I'm still unmarried, without a partner. Over the new year, I went back to my hometown in the county, and none of the matchmaking attempts worked. The matchmaking aunties gave me 2 pieces of advice. First, move to the provincial capital, Zhengzhou, to work and find a partner, so it's easy to take care of my parents. Second, stay in Beijing, but look for someone from my hometown who also is living there. That way, if the pressure gets too much in the future, we could go back home together. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense to me.
都说相亲市场上是属于一种女多男少。
I'm just standing here by this board where we post profiles. Look, there's a girl born in 95 and then 94, next 93 and then 92. Finally, a bit of relief. A boy born in 93 shows up, but then it goes back to 91, 90. You see, mostly slightly older women, and their credentials are impressive. Many were admitted straight into top high schools and universities. Some now hold government positions, civil service jobs, or are university professors. The board is full of women. This really shows how unbalanced the gender ratio is in today's matchmaking market.
中国婚恋市场呀，快变成女儿国了。成都相亲
China's dating market has basically turned into a all-women world. In Chengdu's matchmaking corner, the gender ratio is 1 man to 43 women. In Hangzhou, it's 1 to 40. In Nanchang, it's 1 to 36. In Chengdu, it's gotten so extreme that People's Park even posted a notice registration for women is full, temporarily suspended. Awkward, right? But the real story behind this is even more shocking. According to the 7th National Census, there are 34 million more men than women in China, and among marriageable ages 20 to 40, there are 14.5 million more men than women. So if men are supposed to outnumber women, why are the matchmaking corners packed with women? The harsh truth, the men simply aren't showing up. More and more men are strategically withdrawing from the dating market, and the reasons are rooted in 2 stark realities. The first is what we can call male deresponsibilization. Today, many men aren't buying homes, marrying or supporting a family. They're focusing on themselves. In 2025, China's men's skincare market hit 25 billion yuan, growing 18% year on year. The gaming market reached 350 billion yuan and is still rising. Medical aesthetics spending rose 20% year on year. Even niche hobbies like fishing gear, which made 9.6 billion yuan in 2024, are projected to hit 25.4 billion in 3 years. Despite economic slowdowns and consumption downgrades, male spending is rising counter-cynically. Money is no longer going to women, it's going to themselves. For many men, marriage has become the lowest return investment, so they're simply opting out. The second reality is the terrifying sunk cost of marriage. In China, marriage costs fall almost entirely on men. Data shows that in 2023, the average cost for young couples to get married was 330,400 yuan, while per capita disposable income was only 39,200 yuan. That's 8 years of full income just to tie the knot. In rural areas, it's even worse. What used to cost a few hundred yuan in the 1970s has skyrocketed to a minimum of 600,000 yuan today, when factoring in down payments, bride prices, renovations, and weddings. And there's no upper limit. Marriage costs have risen thousands of times over 30 years, while wages have only increased 100-fold. And that's not all. In 2024, there was 3.5 million divorces compared to 6.1 million marriages, roughly 57 divorces for every 100 marriages, nearly a 60% divorce rate. And in the cost of raising 2 children to university graduation, about 680,000 yuan. Globally, China ranks second for child rearing cost, just behind South Korea. So men aren't disappearing. They've done the math. Marriage drains savings, creates debt, carries a high chance of divorce, and leaves them shouldering the cost of children. Increasingly, men are cutting their losses by refusing to enter the market at all. This is a real reason dating corners are flooded with women, but short on men. And with men retreating, what are all these high-quality women in matchmaking corners really waiting for? The truth might be hard to hear. Many of them are waiting for a wealthy man to pull them out of their ordinary life and into something better.
大龄剩女越来越多，她们到底在等什么？答案很直。
The number of older single women is rising, but what are they really waiting for? Many aren't struggling to find a partner, they simply can't accept something ordinary. When they were younger, they held all the cards, looks, youth, choice, and felt like the leading lady of their own story. But time doesn't wait. Once they pass 35, waiting takes on a different meaning. It shifts from being selective to taking a gamble, hoping for a wealthy man to appear, ideally one who can elevate their social standing. They may say that they want a soulmate, but in their hearts, it's a cost-benefit calculation. Marrying an ordinary man now would be a decade of assisting on quality over quantity to waste. This is a losing battle. Women raised with consumerist ideals like you deserve better see marriage as their last chance to leap up the social ladder. What they're waiting for isn't a person, they're waiting for a trophy to prove they chose correctly. Men, even those in their 30s with houses, cars, and successful careers, have grown up navigating society with a strict sense of equivalent exchange. When it comes to marriage, they want convenience, security, and a safe harbor, not a challenge, and certainty, not a project to lift someone out of hardship. She's calculating social status. He's weighing cost and benefits. When these young men and women who are essentially on different wavelengths circle the walls of the marriage fortress, wary and guarded, it produces one of the most surreal realities in China today. An ever-growing number of older single women at matchmaking events, while single men in lower-tier markets are overwhelmingly abundant but largely unattainable. In this era of tens of millions of missed connections, the one most anxious may not only be the aging parents pacing the matchmaking corners, but also the Chinese authorities concerned over the drop in marriage and fertility rates and the rapidly approaching challenge of an aging population.